You're better off? So why are you better off?
Probably values, like what you value. Like say if you value for women education highly, then it's like compared to your grandparents or your mother, you might be more highly educated, so you feel you're better off.
Yeah.
Based on that value.
That's a good point. The education was not available to our parents, depending on who you were, but our parents and our grandparents, especially if you're in Canada. Canada is only 144 years old, and my parents, my dad came from Germany, my mom's Canadian, but her parents came from France and Scotland, which makes me a mutt. Anyway, but back then, there was, forget university, my mom didn't even finish high school. She's educated, but self-educated, no formal training. So education for us is far more available than it was in the past. What other reasons would you be better off? Technologies? That's debatable. Some of it's good. Your BlackBerry's binging every 2 seconds and you can't get away from anything.
Our rates.
Our what?
Our rates. Like there's more human rates available to everyone than there was back in their day.
Yeah. It's another good reason. What else? Are you healthier?
No.
We got doom sitting right here. Are you healthier or less healthy, you think?
I think we have better access to health care. I wouldn't necessarily say we're healthier.
We're living longer though, right? The age, the projected longevity is gone.
But the food we eat, with a lot of some kind of substitution, so yeah, I don't that.
Okay.
My grandparents are like eating the absolutely natural, from the nature and so on, and now it's like Coca-Cola.
So our diets have changed substantially. We eat a lot more sugar, a lot more carbs, and we're getting all kinds of weird diseases. But maybe we didn't get those diseases before because we didn't live long enough. Like Alzheimer's wasn't heard of, right? Who ever heard of Alzheimer's when my grandma's day? That's because everybody died before they got a chance to get Alzheimer's.
I've heard the new generation of kids that are growing up, their life expectancy is shorter than like the past generations. So
This is the first time I've heard the same thing. This is the first generation where, I don't know what generation that would be, but where you're going to be, I don't know if that's you guys or the next one, but where you're going to be worse off than your parents. And that might be because of pollution, because of weird diseases, because of what we're eating and pesticides and that kind of stuff. But I'm actually quite happy that I live now and not in my grandma's time. My grandmother came from Scotland, and the views about women, that's also come a long way. She had 14 kids, and her husband was a no-good drunk. She made scones to get to Canada, and she brought her, at the time, 9 kids on a boat. And he came along because that's what you do. And he would play poker and drink with his buddies up around Big River, Saskatchewan. And when she was pregnant and was time to give birth, she gave birth in a closet and was totally quiet because it was seen as, that's not such a good thing. So in terms of views of society and individuals, women have come a long way. Plus, I don't really want to be washing clothes down in the river on a rock or something either, so some technology is good. But it depends on your own personal situation. It depends on politics, where you are. It depends on poverty, your status in life, and your well-being. So if we talk about sustainability as being non-declining in human welfare over time, that is one of the keys. That would be one of the objective factors that we would want to measure in terms of outcomes of the policies that we set. Okay? You would set a policy with an incentive such that we wanted to make sure that welfare does not decrease. And you can measure welfare a number of ways. Income per capita, you can measure it in health and longevity, or there's a lot of indices that you can bring all this stuff together and come up with some measure. Okay, so that's for society, non-declining welfare. Another one, I'm not so sure I agree with this one, non-declining consumption. What do you think of this one?
It's stupid.
It's stupid, okay. Non-declining consumption. This is one of the standard, ideas of sustainability.
Of the United States.
Of the United States.
stop consumption.
Yeah. So we always talk about growth. The growth of our economies, expansion, increasing GDP, increasing the products. And when we do that, we consume more, and that results in economic growth. Is that sustainable? Should that be something you consider for sustainability?
Because we have limited resources, you know, and we already consumed our resources, and now we're consuming the resources of our future generations, of our children, and so.
Okay, so
we should
there's,
stop.
you bring
You
up
know,
2 points.
yeah.
Future generations, right?
I really like the praise that was in the Harvard project, that was praised, like, we should think not about ourselves, we should not think about our children, we should think about the 7 generations that will come to this earth, you know. That's really wise praise, and that's why I don't like it. And the kind of the maybe one of the major ideas of our economic system is the non-declining consumption. We should stop and change it.
We
In
think
order
about
to
this,
get
but what are you
sustainable-
making the trade-off? If you're thinking about future generations, what are you trading off against?
Your own.
Today's generation.
But yeah, but you need, you know, you have everything right now.
But we can't, we
yeah,
can't
but-
say that to somebody in
Yes,
Somalia, for
but-
example, or poor
yeah,
people
but
in
look
society,
at the,
right?
like the distribution of the money and resources throughout the world, you know, 2 or 3% of the population of the firms or something like, they have everything, you know, they have money and so on. There is not kind of fair distribution of resources. If all the distributions, like from the transnational companies and so, will be distributed fairly among all the population of Earth, will be okay.
But that's never gonna happen.
Of course, because
Okay,
of
so-
greed.
I'm just gonna cut you off there, because we could talk about that
Yeah.
forever. There's a comment in the back.
If you look at every developed country in the world, it's driven by consumption. So it's products, it creates jobs, it creates all this kind of stuff. You want to reduce consumption, you might as well just label us Africa. Like there's nothing, it's just going to send us back to the Stone Age. So
Yeah.
if you want to keep increasing our population and growth and stuff, it's fed by consumption.
Yes.
So
Isn't there like,
Africa is one more, you know, political thing.
Hang on a
isn't there
second.
like a trend to try to make other people consume more though? Like we're trying to like reach out to developing nations and stuff like that. So isn't that sort of like we don't want to consume more, but we're gonna consume more?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. There's the generation right now, the people on the earth right now. We have huge disparity between people who are rich and doing well and who are filthy rich, and people who are living in cardboard boxes, if they're lucky. Some don't. So when we make decisions about non-declining consumption, it's pretty difficult to do. And in some cases, maybe we want to increase consumption. And it was said earlier, you said it, I think. In countries like United States, North America, Europe, what's our level of affluence? It's way up here, right? And who are the people on Earth that are concerned with climate change and too much carbon in the atmosphere and polluted waters? Is it the rich or the poor?
Rich.
It's the rich. Why are they concerned?
they can afford to do.
They can afford to be concerned. So if you have poorer generations or poorer people on Earth, how do we get them to the point where they're polluting less and they care more about the environment? You typically increase their level of affluence. So it's a trade-off, right? And there's no, if it was an easy answer, we would have solved it by now. But this idea of non-declining consumption is not black and white. So this is something that you can argue about in your critique, for or against or whatever. Any other comments about this one?
No one's gonna be willing to give it up.
Well, not now.
Well, especially the way, you know, you have a phone for 3 years. This phone's not gonna last me for 3 years. Eventually,
Yep.
before my contract's up, I'm gonna have to go find someone's